Hey YouTube! In this lesson we are going to get into the modulation generator, which is Korg's quirky way of saying low frequency oscillator. And low frequency oscillators are exactly like the oscillators that we use for, making the synthesis voices, except we're using this as just a control signal. In much the same way we were using the envelope, which has a attack slope up, and then it decays down, and then it sustains at something, and then eventually we get to the release. This is just an up and down, up and down, up and down. So here I've got a variation on the patch that we were playing with in the last lesson. And if I remove the total input here, now it's falling back to the modulation generator. As you see on the label here, these top ones are all being fed by the modulation generator if they are not receiving a total input. So in this case, only the cutoff frequency for the high pass filter is being affected. You hear that? Boom, 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 boom. And you might recognize this as a kind of a characteristic feature of dubstep. And we'll get into playing around with that for that purpose. But right now, I want to show you how to tame this craziness, right? Because right now we just got this wild whoa, 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 and that's not very musical when we're just playing around. I mean, it sounds all right, but you get tired of that really fast. So let me show you how to calm that down using what we've learned about envelopes. And as you see here, we've got different outputs for our modulation generator. And if I take the triangle and plug that into our total control, it's the same as not having anything into the total control, as you hear. Same exact sort of sound as nothing. But if I take the square and plug it in, we get an entirely different sound. So you see the default with the modulation generator is actually going to be the triangle. So if you want the square, you need to plug in the square input into whatever you want the square to be controlling, because just using the knobs is only going to give you the triangle. And sometimes you want the square because it's going to sound a lot different. The square wave is a full-on, full-off. So there's no ramp up as we get with the triangle wave. It just goes straight to full-on. And in this case, it's modulating the high-pass filter's cutoff frequency. So it's just going full-on, pushing that way up, and then it goes straight off. And with this, we get more of a ramp up and a ramp down. And I like the sound of that, so we're going to use that for now. But keep in mind that that is the default for this, which is why you see a triangle and a square on this. And you can change the shape to a saw or different pulse lengths. But for now, I'm just leaving it in the center. And I'm going to grab this signal and throw it into this voltage-controlled amplifier, which is a dedicated little unit right here that we can use to take a modulation source and control it with a different modulation source. And in this case, I'm going to take our envelope generator 1's output and make that the control input for this and plug the out now back into our total. And now we get the whole attack, decay, and everything else applying to the LFO. You hear it only does the wah 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 when I hold down the key for very long. So now it's no longer this just kind of chaotic boom, 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 boom. We've got full control over it based on how we are playing. And now we can use that as a source for the other knobs here. And one interesting thing to plug this into is our frequency modulation, which is also controlled by the modulation generator or total external. And that sounds like this as it's cycling through the pitch on our voiced oscillators. So as you hear, it gets pretty crazy when you let it get really high, but we'll leave it a little bit past 0.5. And you see hitting keys fast isn't playing with our pitch at all. But now as I hold down the key, I'm going to have the cutoff frequency of the high-pass filter and the frequency of the two oscillators' pitch being changed. And just so you can hear that without the envelope controlling our modulation generator, let me take that out. You hear that, and it's just complete shit, right? It's just a mess of, and that's no good at all. So let's plug that right back in. Ah, music to my ears.